Good evening. My name is Melissa Clow, and I'm with the City of Iowa City. And we're here tonight for our public meeting to discuss the 2nd Avenue Bridge Replacement Project. With me here at the city is Scott Silvers, the Assistant City Engineer, and Jason Hobble, the City Engineer. We also have Troyer Ritter and Grant Finch from Shoemaker and Holland online. They will both be doing the majority of the presenting. The format tonight is I will be doing introductions and a brief background on the project. And I'll hand it over to our consultant, Shoemaker and Holland. We do have a chat function available at the bottom, and we'll be watching that. So if you have any questions during our presentation, go ahead and feel free to type in your question and we'll address those at the end. There also should be a function where you can raise your hand if you have a question. So if you want to ask a question during the meeting, feel free to raise your hand and we'll unmute you and we can have a discussion. So with that, we'll get into the background really quick to the 2nd Avenue Bridge project. This is a bridge replacement project on 2nd Avenue between D Street at the north and F Street at the south. The project generally includes the removal and replacement of the existing 2-lane bridge with a new 2-lane bridge. It'll be designed to meet local and state guidelines for traffic as well as pedestrians. And we will be using aesthetics to improve and enhance the neighborhood views of the creek along the Court Hill Trail there as well. Also included are improved stream bank stabilization upstream and downstream of the new bridge. Sidewalk connections to the Creekside Trail, as well as a connection of water main dead ends that currently exist on the north and south side of the bridge. The quick update on the bridge condition. In 2019, our biennial bridge inspection rated the deck and the superstructure of the 2nd Avenue Bridge as in serious condition, and replacement was recommended. At that time, the stream bank channel was also noted as having widespread minor damage with bank slump. Currently, the deck is spalling, has cracks, and delamination is occurring. And it is also posted with a 10-ton weight embargo due to that current condition. Additionally, there's no traffic barrier that separates pedestrians from vehicles. So we'll be adding that, that traffic barrier in place. Impacts to the Creekside Trail will be minimized as much as possible during construction, and we'll be proposing a temporary travel surface or marked detour route, which Shoemaker and Holland will discuss a little bit further. While we were looking at 2nd Avenue to replace the bridge, we also looked at those sidewalk connections. We are proposing sidewalk infill from just south of F Street all the way up to the Court Hill Trail. When we do different projects, we, the city, tend to look at existing sidewalks and do what we can to improve the city's sidewalk system. So this improves the walkability to parks from residential neighborhoods, access to trails, and also provides additional accessibility for those who don't rely on cars. Quick note on funding. Due to the condition of the bridge, the city qualified for federal aid funding through the City Bridge Program. This program is administered by the Iowa DOT, so we'll be letting the project through the Department of Transportation. And that funding will provide for 80% of the participating costs of the bridge replacement. So that helps out the city with funding. I guess with that, I will turn it over to Grant to talk about some of the civil items and the current condition and improvements that we're going to make.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. On this slide here, showing some existing photos of the 2nd Avenue project, starting on the south end with photo number 1. We're just south of the F Street intersection, and you can see where the existing sidewalk on the east side of the road ends at the driveway. Moving north of the F Street intersection onto photo 2, there's a shot of the roadway and the east right-of-way, showing existing trees in the right-of-way. Kind of the same thing on photo number 3 as we continue north, getting closer to the bridge. And then photo 4, we're looking at the existing bridge over Ralston Creek. You can see the geometry as well as the fire hydrant there on the bottom right corner. And so that's what we're starting with now today. If we go to the next slide. Here's a little more detailed view of the proposed improvements. Start again at the south end, that'd be the upper left-hand corner. We're connecting onto the existing sidewalk and widening that out to 5 feet to meet city standards. When we did our design, we were looking at both sides of the street and looking at which side it made more sense to put the sidewalk on. We determined that the east side had the least number of negative impacts and least number of tree removals. So it was determined to put the sidewalk on the east side. The sidewalk alignment matches the existing as we approach F Street. And then we have a new intersection crossing F Street there, curb ramps. And as we proceed north, we shifted the sidewalk alignment closer to the right-of-way, away from the street, to avoid some tree removals in that area. And then as we continue north, kind of to the bottom half of the page, getting closer to the bridge, we shift the sidewalk back closer to the road. I think we're 8 feet off of the roadway at that point, which is meeting city standards. And then the sidewalk will shift even closer to the road as we approach the bridge. We have sidewalk on both sides of the bridge and connections into the existing Guardrail trail on the north side of the bridge. We're also proposing to replace driveway aprons throughout the length of the project, and those will connect from the existing pavement out to near the right-of-way. Existing gravel driveways will be replaced with concrete, as we have shown on the plan. The existing pavement has some deterioration in areas. So there's a portion south of the F Street intersection that we're going to remove and replace. That's pretty deteriorated. And then as well, as we get closer to the bridge, we'll have to remove and replace the pavement for the bridge construction, as well as replacing some additional pavement to the south that was deteriorated. The project also includes some utility improvements, as Melissa mentioned. The existing water main currently dead ends on the north and south sides of Ralston Creek. And we're proposing to connect those two dead end sections, as well as installing new valves and hydrants to improve the functionality of the water system. We're also removing and replacing some existing storm sewer. The current storm sewer is running on the east side and outlets through the existing bridge abutments. We're proposing to put in some new storm manholes and storm sewer so that we can outlet that storm sewer on the downstream side of the bridge. We also have a few minor adjustments to existing private utilities, fiber optic and electric, but there's no major concerns, and we've met with utility companies to discuss the project prior to this meeting. Closer to the bridge, we do have some temporary construction easements that the city is working to secure. The rest of the project will be constructed inside the existing city right-of-way and Ralston Creek right-of-way, 2nd Avenue and Ralston Creek right-of-ways. We flip to the next page. This is looking north now in the plan view here. It shows the extents of the Court Hill Trail removal and replacement, as well as the stream bank stabilization on Ralston Creek to the north and south. If you've been out to the site recently, you've probably noticed that some tree removals were completed in early March. The city had to do that to meet DNR and DOT regulations to protect endangered species, in this case, the Indiana bat, which calls for removal of trees between November 16th and March 31st. So we had a few dry days out there that the city was able to get out and remove those trees to keep this project on schedule. If we move on to the next slide, on the bottom half, we have a couple photos showing the existing stream bank, upstream and downstream of the bridge, minus the tree removals that were recent. But also on the top half of the page, we're showing the proposed reinforced soil stabilization section. The existing soils on site were determined to be unsuitable by the geotechnical engineer based on soil borings. So we're proposing reinforced soil slopes to stabilize the banks. And you can see from the detail, we're proposing to put in geogrid, free draining granular backfill, and turf reinforcement on the stream bank to stabilize, as well as some revetment or some large stone on the stream bank toe. And then the stream banks would be seeded with a prairie seed mix for low maintenance and aesthetics. We're also proposing to straighten the channel slightly to prevent future impacts to the trail from erosion. And the project is also located in the floodplain of Ralston Creek, so any placement of fill was limited in order to meet floodplain regulations. If we move on to the next sheet, this plan showing the surface restoration for the project. You can see in green the areas that are proposed for just standard urban seeding. It's the entire east right-of-way of 2nd Avenue from the back of curb out to the right-of-way. We also have some erosion control devices shown on there as well along the back of curb. And those are to prevent discharge of sediment from construction areas until the seeding has been established. As we move on to the next sheet, a little better view of the Ralston Creek section. We have the urban seeding in green and then the prairie seeding in blue, as well as the revetment at the toe of the bank, and then our turf reinforcement as we move up to the top of the bank. We're also having our erosion control devices in place during construction along the top of banks, as well as a floating silt curtain at the downstream end of the project limits. I think there was a question that came in on why isn't the sidewalk being extended north to D Street? I believe the future sidewalk is kind of outside of the the constraints of this project, but I don't know, the city, if you'd like to weigh in on future sidewalk improvements in the Second Avenue corridor.
That's definitely something we can look at if there's interest from the neighborhood in extending it farther up to see if that's possible. I know we looked at just existing trees and what made the most sense right now with this project. So we can double back and take a look at that again.
Okay, and we did show, just for planning purposes, we did show that future sidewalk in the dash line on the plan that's on the screen there. Another question just came in on why were so many trees removed, and are any new trees going to be planted? The trees we had shown removed, we needed to get out of the way in order to construct the stream bank stabilization. You can kind of see the limits there that we're seeding. That's the area that has to be disturbed. We're changing the grading in those areas, removing the unsuitable soils, and stabilizing that stream bank. And so it was necessary to remove those trees. I believe the city is looking at, future tree plantings in that area. I don't know if they have anything determined at this point, but let you weigh in, Melissa.
Yep, thanks, Grant. We don't have anything determined at this time, but I've talked with Parks and Rec, and they are already looking at having a tree planting plan in place for a year from now, after the project's complete.
Okay. I noticed one other question that came in, saying the area floods often. How will this project affect flood risk? So this, and Troy will kind of discuss the bridge geometry a little more later here, but overall, the proposed elevations from this project are going to be very close to the existing. We're in the floodplain, so we're trying to limit the amount of fill. I think when we looked at our modeling of the existing versus proposed bridge, the water surface elevations for a 100-year flood event were slightly lower than the existing elevations. So I don't know if this project will have a large impact on flooding and flood risk. It's not going to make the conditions any worse, and I would say it would have a slight improvement. We were limited by the improvements. I guess it's a very urban area. We didn't have a lot of room to work with. The new bridge will be longer than the existing. And I guess I can let Troy talk more about the kind of segue into the bridge improvements.
Yeah, I'm Troy Ritter with Shoemaker in Holland. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, so as Melissa and Grant kind of touched on, the main goal of this project is to replace the bridge. The bridge is about 52 years old, and it's the current one's 24 feet long, and bridges of that vintage were kind of designed for 40 years, and we're past that at 50 now. Bridges designed today are generally designed to last a little longer than that. So we designed a little bit more for longevity. It's more of a continuous system as opposed to what you see out there today with all the cracks and joints in the bridge. That's one of the reasons it gets the deficient rating at this point and the reduced load rating. Any opportunity for moisture to seep into a structure just sort of starts destroying it from the inside out. And then, as Grant said, the bridge will be a little bit longer, so there will be an improvement in flood risk. It won't be substantial or maybe even measurable, but our task here is to make sure we don't negatively impact anyone living along Ralston Creek there. And we've done modeling and other geometric studies and work with the DNR to make sure that doesn't happen. So that's being taken care of by that. Like I said, the bridge will be a continuous flat slab bridge. It'll be a concrete structure with steel piles underneath. And one of the things we're going to do is improve the aesthetics of the guardrail. And as Melissa mentioned, it'll be receiving a pedestrian barrier. So those that do choose to use the sidewalks will have a protective barrier from drivers on the street. And the photo here is kind of a rail up at the Meadow Street Bridge over Ralston, just a few blocks away. And you can also find this rail on other bridges such as Brookside. And what we're trying to do here is kind of get a continuous aesthetic for the bridges around Ralston Creek. So this is really what you could expect to see on the 2nd Avenue Bridge. Here, kind of the barrier and guardrail plans drawn up. The guardrail, which would be on the outside of the bridge on the bottom, and the barrier rail on the top there. And here are a couple of very rough renderings of what kind of the overall bridge will look like when it's done. The upper left is a kind of an isometric, and the color's not perfect on these because it's hard to match exactly, but it'll be something close to what you see here. And then on the upper right is kind of a zoomed in view, and the bottom would be maybe what you'd see if you're using the Court Hill Trail and you look over at the bridge. And to get the bridge constructed, they will start with demoing out the original bridge, removing everything down to the old timber piles that are below the stream bank now. You can kind of see them actually modeled on the upper left here. And then what we'll do is drive new steel piles. And once those are installed, it's just a matter of building up concrete until you get to the deck height, and then getting a formwork in place to support wet concrete and pouring the deck. And then after that, you get the guardrail put on and have a new bridge. And then, of course, as we talked about, the trail will get disturbed, and the bridge construction will kind of go into the trail here, kind of in the middle of the screen. I might go to the next sheet first, actually. And what we're going to do is implement a temporary pedestrian detour to hopefully be in place and be usable as often as possible during the project, so trail users can continue and use as much as possible. But there are going to be times when, it's just not possible to use that section of the trail due to the stream bank stabilization and maybe some of the bridge construction activities. And so we're going to have a pedestrian detour in place, which will take people down to Muscatine, corner of Muscatine and First, and then back around. It shouldn't be a large impact, and there are paved walks on that entire route. I guess with that, are there any further questions and comments on the 2nd Avenue Bridge replacement? Oh, thank you. I did forget the schedule. So we're currently still under design. We're hoping to wrap up design here by the end of spring or early summer. And then the project will be bid by contractors in the middle of August. And then subsequently the work will begin maybe as soon as, maybe 30 to 60 days after that. And then construction will go through the fall and winter of 21 and into the spring of 22.
Real quick to circle back to the sidewalk up to D Street. Talking here, that sidewalk would be a future addition to one of our sidewalk infill projects. So I think we'll leave it at that. So.
And Melissa, will any of this information be posted?
Yes, we will. Our communications team is pulling together a project website where we can share information on this project as we move forward with the schedule. So we should have that up in the next week or so, and this presentation will, the slideshow will be put up there. And my information will be shared as well. So afterwards, if you're thinking about the project and have any additional questions, you can feel free to visit the city website and give me a call anytime. I guess right now, if you want to write it down, if you have questions that come up before then, my direct number is 319-356-5413. Or you can just call the main Iowa City engineering number, and will direct you to me. Grant, there's another comment in about contract days. Do we know, have we estimated that yet?
Yeah, I think when we looked at similar projects, we were looking at around 90 contract working days for the project. 80 to 90 was what we were looking at. And again, with the late summer letting, we anticipate the work to begin in 21 and then to be finished up in 2022.
Well, I think with that, City wants to thank everyone for attending the meeting. I know Zoom's a little bit trickier than having these in person, so hopefully we'll be back to that soon. But again, if you have any comments, feel free to reach out to us, and we look forward to a good project.